and it's Chapter 4, Bed and Breakfast and Murder. Horrific secrets of the Whitechapel guest house. Bodies found in pit beneath garden shed. Authorities in East London acted yesterday to seal off Lavender Lodge, a guest house in Cannon Lane, Whitechapel, after discovery of human remains on the property. The owners, Mr. Herbert Evans, 72, and his wife Nora, 70, have been arrested and charged with murder and robbery and with failure to disclose a dangerous haunting. A powerful visitor located in the attic of the house has been destroyed. It is believed that over the last 10 years, many lodgers have died of ghost touch while staying at the lodge. Mr. and Mrs. Evans then disposed of the corpses in a fruit cellar hidden in the back garden. Police have recovered a number of watches, jewellery, and other personal effects that were taken from the victims. The decisive investigation was carried out by the Lockwood Co agency, led by Mr. Anthony Lockwood. Records show that a previous owner of Lavender Lodge vanished in mysterious circumstances more than 30 years ago, he says. We think that the mummified body in the attic belonged to him. It was his angry spirit that stalked the house, killing guests as they slept. Mr. and Mrs. Evans took advantage of this for their own personal gain. After subduing the ghost, the agents were forced to break a window and climb down a drain pipe to escape the lodge, before finally confronting the geriatric duo in their kitchen. Old Evans proved quite handy with a carving knife, Mr. Lockwood says, and his wife came at us with a skewer, so we knocked them on the head with a broom. It was a ticklish moment, but we're happy to have survived unscathed. And that's it, Lockwood said disgustingly. He lowered the newspaper and sat back in his armchair. That's all the Times gives us for our trouble. There's more of a scuffle in the kitchen than there was about the charger, our changer. Doesn't exactly focus on the important stuff, does it? It's the unscathed bit I object to, George said. That old cow gave me a right whack. See this horrible red blob? I glanced up at him. I thought your nose always looked like that. No, here on my forehead, this bruise. Lockwood gave an unsympathetic grunt. Yes, dreadful. What really bothers me is that we only made page 7. No one's going to notice that. The massive Chelsea outbreak is dominating the news again. That's our stuff's getting lost. It was late morning, 2 days after Lavender Lodge affair, and they were stretched out in the library of the house in Portland Row, trying to relax. Outside the window, a gale was blowing. Portland Row seemed formed of liquid. Trees flexed, rain pattered on the panes. Inside it was warm. We had the heating on full blast. George was slumped on the sofa beside a giant pile of crumpled ironing, jogging bottoms akimbo, reading a comic. It is a shame they don't talk more about the actual case, he said. The way the changer created its own little cluster of other ghosts was fascinating. That's how the problem spreads, some say. Strong visitors causing violent deaths, which lead to secondary hauntings. I'd have loved to study it in more detail. That's how George always was. Once the panic of a case died down, he was curious about it. He wanted to understand why and how it happened. Me, it was an emotional impact of the adventure that I couldn't quite shake off. I just felt sorry for those poor ghost-touched men, I said. I was sitting cross-legged on the sofa. Uh, Officially, I was sorting the post. Unofficially, I was having a gentle doze, having been up till 3 on the lurker case the night before. I could feel their sadness, I went on. And even that changer, yes, it was terrifying, but it was unhappy too. I could feel its pain, and that if I'd had more time to contact with it properly, it would have killed you stone dead. From the depths of his chair, Lockwood gave me a look. Your talent's amazing, Luce, but the only ghost you should communicate with is that skull because it's locked up in a jar. Though to be honest, I'm not sure even that's safe either. Oh, the skull's okay, I said. It helped me with the lurker case last night. He gave me a fix on the source so I could dig it up. We were quite close to Chelsea, where we were. What about you two? Either of you hear the sirens? Lockwood nodded. Another 3 people killed. Deepak are completely clueless, as usual. They're evacuating a couple of streets, I think. Way more than that, George said. The outbreak stretches a good square mile across the King's Road. More ghosts every night, in greater concentration than ever before, and no one knows why. He adjusted his glasses. It's weird. Until recently, Chelsea was pretty quiet, everything peaceful, and then, all at once, things go into haunting overdrive. It's like an infection is spreading. But here's what I want to know. How do you actually fire ghosts up? How do you infect the dead? There was no answer to this, and I didn't try to provide one. Lockwood just groaned. He'd been chasing a spectre through Hackney marshes until the early hours and was in no mood for George's ponderings. All I care about, he said, is how Chelsea's hogging our publicity. You do know Kipps's team is working on it? He's on page 1 today, giving some stupid quote or other. Page 1! That's where we should be. We need to take part in something big like that. Maybe I should speak to Barnes, see if he wants us to help out. Trouble is, we're already so overworked. Yes, we were. It was November, as I'd mentioned of what at the beginning of what would become known as the Black Winter, the deadliest period in the history of the problem. The epidemic of hauntings that had beset the nation for more than 50 years had reached new levels of insanity, and the terrifying outbreak in Chelsea was just the tip of the iceberg. All psychic investigation agencies were stretched to breaking point. Lockwood Co. was no exception. Overworked didn't really cover it. We lived, the 3 of us, in a 4-story property in Portland Row, London, which was the headquarters of our agency. Lockwood himself owned the house. It had once belonged to his parents, and their collection of oriental wards and ghost chasers still lined the walls of many rooms. Lockwood had converted the basement to an office, with desks, iron stores, and rapier practice rooms. At the rear, a reinforced glass door led out into the garden, complete with a little lawn and apple trees, where we'd sometimes lounge in the summer. On the upper floors were bedrooms. The ground floor contained the kitchen, the library, and the living room where Lockwood interviewed our clients. It was here we spent most of our time. For several months, though, time had been in extremely short supply. This was partly down to our own success. In July, our investigation at Kensal Green Cemetery had ended with the so-called battle in the graveyard, featuring a fight between the agents and a group of violent black marketeers, along with our encounter with the horrific rat ghost of Hampstead. It had aroused a lot of interest in the press, and an interest that continued during the trial of the chief marketeer, a man named Julius Winkman. Lockwood, George, and I all gave evidence against him. By the time Winkman was sent down for a stiff stretch in Wandsworth Prison, it was the middle of September, and our period of free publicity had lasted nearly 2 months. During this time, our phone had seldom stopped ringing. It was true that most wealthy clients preferred to stick with the larger agencies, which had swankier equipment and bigger reputations. Most of our business came from poorer districts like Whitechapel, where clients didn't pay so well, but jobs were jobs, and Lockwood didn't like to turn any of them down. This meant that free evenings were thin on the ground. "Anything going on tonight, George?" Lockwood said suddenly. He'd thrown a weary arm across his face. I'd assumed he was asleep. "Please say no." George said nothing, but raised 3 fingers. "3?" Lockwood muttered in a long, hollow groan. "What are they?" "Woman in a Veil on Nelson Street, Whitechapel, a haunted apartment block tower, and a shade spotted behind some public toilets. The usual glamorous stuff." "We'll have to split up again," Lockwood said. "Bagsy the Veiled Woman," George grunted. "Bagsy the Shade." "What?" My head jerked up. The Bagsy rule was second only to the biscuit rule in terms of importance. It was always held firm. "So I get the tower block. Brilliant. I bet the lists will be out and all." You're fit enough to manage a few stairs loose, Lockwood murmured. What if it's 21 floors? What if it's a raw bones at the top? What if I'm too out of breath to deal with it? Wait, what if the lift is working, but the ghost's hidden inside? You remember what happened to that girl from the Seabright agency, and she got stuck in that haunted elevator at Canary Wharf? They only found her shoes. Stop burbling, Lockwood said. You're tired. We all are. You know you'll be fine. We all subsided again. I leaned my head back against the sofa cushions. Rivulets of water laced the library window like veins of blood. Okay, I really like veins of blood. Okay, not really like veins of blood. I was tired, like Lockwood said. Lockwood, through half-closed eyes, I was watching him now, trapping him tight between my lashes. I looked at his long legs, loosely crossed over the side of the chair, at the bare feet, at the slim contours of his body, half concealed beneath the rumpled shirt. His face was mostly covered by his arm, but you could see the line of his jaw and the expressive lips, relaxed and parted slightly. His dark hair spilled softly over the white sleeve. How did he manage to look like that after only 5 hours' sleep, lying curled up and crumpled in the chair? Being half dressed never did me any favours. With George, it practically came with a health warning. Yet, Lockwood managed to carry it off perfectly. It was pleasantly warm in the room. My eyelashes squeezed a little tighter. I put my hand to my silver necklace, slowly turning it between my fingers. We need a new agent, Lockwood said. I opened my eyes wide. Behind me, I heard George put his comic down. What? We need another operative, another working agent to back us up, don't we? We shouldn't have to keep separating all the time. We worked together at Lavender Lodge, I said. That was a one-off. Lockwood moved his arm and pushed the hair out of his face. Hardly ever happens now. Anyway, look around. We're not really coping, are we? George yawned. What makes you say that? He gave an almighty stretch and knocked over the pile of ironing, which collapsed upon my head, like a giant amoeba undulating purposefully across a petri dish. A pair of George's briefs flopped slowly past my nose. Case in point, Lockwood said as I shook myself free. One of you should have ironed all that, but you haven't had any time. Or you could have always ironed them, of course, George said. Me? I'm busier than you. This is the way it always went now. We were working so hard at night, we had no energy for doing stuff during the day, so we no longer got around to inessential things, such as keeping the place tidy or doing laundry. All of 35 Portland Row was suffering. The kitchen looked like a salt bomb had gone off in it. Even the skull in the jar, no stranger to vile surroundings, had made indignant comments about the environment we lived in. If we had another agent, Lockwood said, we could properly take things in turns. One of us could rest at home each night and do odd jobs during the day. I've been considering this for a while. I think it's the only answer. George and I were silent. The idea of a new colleague didn't much appeal to me. In fact, it gave me a twisty sort of feeling in my belly. Overstretched as we definitely were, I liked the way we operated. As we had at Lavender Lodge, we backed up each other any time it was necessary. We got things done. Are you sure? I said at last. Where would they sleep? Not on the floor, George said. They'd probably get some disease. Well, they're not sharing the attic with me. They wouldn't have to sleep here, you idiots, Lockwood growled. Since when has living under the same roof been a requirement for the job? They turn up to work in the morning like 99% of other people do. Maybe it's not a full agent we need, I suggested. Maybe it's just an assistant, someone to tidy up after us. In all the important stuff, surely we're doing fine. I agree with Lucy, George returned to his comic. We've got a good setup here. We shouldn't mess it up. Well, I'll think on it, Lockwood said. The truth was, of course, that Lockwood was far too busy to think about it at all, so nothing was ever likely to happen. which suited me just fine. I've been at the company 18 months so far. Yes, we were overworked. Yes, we lived in partial squalor. Yes, we risked our lives every night. Yet, I was very happy. Why? Three reasons: my colleagues, my new self knowledge, and because of an opened door. Of all the agencies in London, Lockwood Co was unique, not just because it was the smallest, total number of agents, three, but because it was owned and run by someone who was himself young. Other agencies employed hundreds of child operatives. They had to, of course, because only children could detect ghosts. But these companies were firmly controlled by adults who never got closer to a haunted house than shouting distance from the street. Lockwood, however, was a leader who fought ghosts himself. His skills with the rapier were second to none. I knew I was lucky to work at his side, lucky in a lot of ways. Not only was he independent, but he was an inspiring companion, managing to be both coolly unflappable and recklessly audacious at the same time, and his air of mystery only added to his allure. Lockwood seldom spoke of his emotions, desires, or influences that drove him, and in that first year of living at Portland Row, I had learned almost nothing about his past. His absent parents were an enigma, even though their possessions hung on every wall. How he'd come to own the house, with enough money to start his own agency, I likewise didn't have a clue. To begin with, this didn't matter much. Secrets followed Lockwood like his flapping coat, and it was nice to be close enough to feel him brush against me too. So Lockwood's proximity made me happy. George, it had to be said, was more of an acquired taste, being scruffy, uh, acerbic, and renowned around London for his casual approach to the application of soap. But he was also intellectually honest and boundless curiosity, and was a brilliant researcher whose insights kept us all alive. Plus, and this was the crucial point, he was ferociously loyal to his friends, who happened to be Lockwood and me. And it was precisely because we were friends, because we trusted one another, that we were free to explore the things closest to our hearts. George could happily research the causes of the problem. Lockwood could steadily build the reputation of the firm. Me, before arriving at Portland Row, had been ignorant, even uneasy, about my ability to hear the voices of the dead and, sometimes, communicate with them. But Lockwood & Co. gave me the opportunity to explore my psychic talents at my own pace and uncover what I could do. After the pleasure I got from my companions, this new self-perception was the second reason why I was so content. Why I was so content that grim November morning as the rain poured down outside. And the third, well, for some months I'd been growing frustrated by Lockwood's ultimate remoteness. All three of us certainly benefited from our shared experiences and mutual trust, but as time went by, mysteries that surrounded him had begun to weigh heavily on me, and this had been symbolized by his refusal to tell us anything about a particular room on the first floor of the house, a room that would never been allowed to enter. I'd had a lot of theories about this strange shut door, but it was clear to me it had something to do with his past, and probably with the fate of his missing parents. The secret of the room had steadily become an invisible block between us, keeping us apart, and I despaired of ever understanding it, of ever understanding him, until one summer's day, when Lockwood had unexpectedly relented. Without preamble, he'd taken George and me up to the landing, opened the forbidden door, and shown us a little of the truth. And do you know what? It turned out I'd been wrong. It wasn't his parents' room after all. It was his sister's. His sister, Jessica Lockwood, who had died there 6 years before. And that's the end of chapter 4. Thank you for listening.